Common Filth Radio, episode 61, Common Filth at commonfilth.com is my email address, ask.fm/commonfilth. That's my Ask FM count, r/commonfilth on reddit.com. And apologies to my Reddit followers, I did not post a question thread for episode 61 this week. I do apologize, but there will be one for episode 62 shortly after I upload this. So, as you can see, we are back to the old logo. I am back to my old recording rig, and it is good to be back. That means I can resume work on Tumbleristas and Tumbleristas Raw Volume 3. And like I announced 2 weeks ago, everything on the Bandcamp page is still half off and will be up until the release of Tumbleristas Raw Volume 3, which I do not have an estimated date for anymore because I did not plan for these various technology failures to happen. So, but I assure you I'll be working on it. But until that time comes, you can, if you haven't caught up on the old Tumbleristas Raw collections and the Best of Common Filth Radio 2014, do that. It's all, I believe, everything together right now will run you like $3.50 if you don't want to pay any more than that. So, really good deal. Before I do anything else, I would like to thank Toilet Law. Give all of my thanks to Toilet Law for filling in for me last week while I was goofing around. And before I get into where I was, I would like to ask, where the fuck were you? And by you, I mean the people mouthing off in the comments section. We have a guest host. You act like we have guests. I mean, a couple of you were bitching about racism. I don't know who you were. You're some nobodies. I don't give a fuck. You're bitching about racism and bigotry because it tickles that part of your brain that I talk about. It tickles that part of your brain that got the arbitrary letter for repeating opinions back to your teachers and professors. Yeah, that part. But I have to slow down because I don't want to dwell on the negative that has no broader consequences. After all, there's a lot more evil out there that we deal with on a weekly basis than some morons who like to run their mouth, or fingers as it were. It's really irritating to me because I know immediately who's been raised by the single mother. They have this mom morality where it goes beyond nothing but share your toys and you're just as bad as they are. Immediately, I know who doesn't have a father figure in their life. I immediately know who doesn't have a dad in their life. I immediately know when I see these types of comments who is completely oblivious to masculine ways of being. And to some level, I sympathize. I feel bad for these kids that have no idea what it's like for somebody to set boundaries. I do feel bad for these kids that have no idea what standards look like or how to live by them. I feel bad for these kids who live by a code that's completely arbitrary. There's a reason why we are born to a mother and father. There is a reason. Women are good at certain things, men are good at certain things. And I've said before that I think the primary reason is for children to be socialized around both sexes, because you cannot function in society without that, without knowledge of how to interact with females and how to interact with males. But my sympathy runs out when these people who have had evil upbringings and they had no say in it, but they do have a say in spreading evil themselves, and they do. Evil begets evil. Dysfunction begets dysfunction. 80% of whites are pedophiles, or 80% of pedophiles are whites. Yeah, let's look at the prison population. How many kitty diddlers are there? Yeah, I saw a lot of creepy dudes in trench coats hiding behind bushes at when school gets out. I saw a lot of those in Idaho. I saw a lot of kids walking home, and they were all getting stalked by these creepy adults. And that's what these people believe. These mom minds, these These minds that are addled, lobotomized by single mothers. This is what they believe. Everyone's equally bad. No one's worse than anybody else. So, with that in mind, I have a comment here. Oh, well, this was in response to something I posted on Full House Memes. In response to something about Bernie Sanders. Some idiot says, free college, free healthcare, bigger wages? Fuck it, call me a communist. Yeah, everything's free when your dad pays for it. Oh, here we go. Here's one of many that I've been meaning to get to. And this came on Common Filth Radio episode 42. And I believe that I made some passing comment about these Mother Gaia people. I really didn't get into it, but apparently my words were enough to trigger this response. So here it is. Fuck you, dude. I don't believe in any gods for my own reasons that you will not be privy to. However, to say that thinking our Earth is not a living thing is straight ignorant. It's not just a living thing, it's the living thing you occupy. It's the only one we have too, and you, as well as everyone else, should feel obligated to not just protect it, but clean it. Why? So no one will have to go without clean air, food from rich soil, or drinkable water. Fuck, you're on point about a lot of things, but you're nearly as bad as SJW's millennials or whatever the fuck what the fuck ever you claim to hate. You're a mirror image of the very thing you hate. Take a deep breath and chill out. Read a book or two and look at the fucking facts. Or look at fucking facts. Well, if God isn't real, then, the Earth is just a clump of cells, so whatever. Just a clump of cells. Checkmate, Mother Gaia theist. And, for your own reasons, you will not be privy to. Yeah, I have an idea of why you don't believe in God. It's because you already have a God. Your God is your own asshole. Your asshole is the God you worship, and everything that comes out of it. You think this is my first rodeo. You think this is the only time I've ever seen a comment like this. I know exactly how you people operate. I know exactly what you are. And the line about, oh, you're just as bad as SJWs and millennials. Yeah, I haven't heard that one before either. Shit, that's not even the first time this week I've heard it. And I believe this would be a good time to address this notion among the moderate left about, how they accuse people of being just as bad as SJWs. I've said before that, and many others have said before, that you can't separate what is said from how it is said. How it is said to the average person is what. That is the content. The method of delivery is the content. They hear the tone. They hear the method in which it is delivered, and not the content. The Adderall-addled, pot-poisoned mind looks at somebody or hears somebody who speaks with conviction, who actually believes the shit they say. People who speak with periods rather than question marks. I'm unsure of everything I say. They think caring is the problem and apathy is the solution. Caring about things beyond Adderall prescriptions and strains of marijuana. You see, apathy creates a vacuum. It creates a vacuum where this impulse to care about something, to contribute to something, gets redirected in a very perverse way. Social justice is a very perverse way in which this impulse gets redirected. But if your Adderall and marijuana would let you, I'm sure that you would care about correcting historical injustices, because we are historical creatures. What's that line I used before? Here lies our dearly beloved. He was on the wrong side of history. And next to that grave, here lies our other dearly beloved. No, our primary dearly beloved. Zur was on the right side of history, and that's what really counts. So enough about you, let's talk about me. Where was I? Well, I mentioned I was in Idaho a couple minutes ago. I was in Boise specifically, or is it Boise? I've heard it pronounced both ways. Boise, whatever. Yeah, I was in Boise, Idaho, visiting family, and took pictures. And this one cracked me up a lot. This one made me laugh, a hearty laugh. This was on a flyer in the student union at Boise State University. You want to go to grad school? At Boise State, the average annual pay for an adjunct professor, roughly half the faculty with a PhD, is approximately $17,000. What is the fate of scholarship when no one can reasonably live on a professor's wage? What else does it say? Three credit classes, both fall and spring. Adjuncts are not allowed to be full-time. For 3 credit classes, even if there are courses available. This is to mandate their unbenefited low-wage position. But even if they were allowed full-time status, it would still be shameful at $25,000 a year. This community service announcement is brought to you by some organization that I am not going to broadcast to thousands of people. And I would like to repeat this rhetorical question this flyer asked me. What is the fate of scholarship when no one can reasonably live on a professor's wage? Well, the way you're putting it, I hope it goes the way of the dinosaur. No, dinosaurs are cool. I hope it goes the way of something that went completely extinct. So extinct we have no record of it. At least the past 100 years of it. But since we don't live in an ideal world, the fate of scholarship is, well, you will get a bailout from the federal government. And you thought the banksters were evil. Well, wait until you're on the right end of the stick. Wait until you're on the right end of the Gibbs me dat. Oh wait, you already are because you have a government job, you piece of shit. Yeah, what's the fate of scholarship? Why don't you get a real fucking job? In fact, you don't even have to get a real job. Just be like, I had a really good dissertation about the history of sex toys, and they just won't give me a job teaching 4 classes about that. So, can I be like your diversity officer or something? Go to any major corporation, bam, you have a job. There you go. Congratulations. You get to never be held accountable for your do-nothing lifestyle. Listen to all this great advice I'm giving out. Listen to all this great advice that I'm just giving away to these degenerates for free. But I suppose they aren't listening in the first place, so. No one's taking, and no one's buying. So, yeah, that's enough of that picture. I have another one that was like Diversity Week. And the first 2 days, or one of the 2 days, are like LGBTQ plus workshop, the difference between sex and gender, and respecting pronouns and stuff. And it was at that moment that I realized that any place where the cultural life centers around a university it should not be long for this world. People have no idea the kind of nonsense they're inviting into their communities when universities are at the center of what goes on. But other than that, I like the area, I like the people, and like I said before, I wasn't joking about seeing young children walking home by themselves. Not by themselves, but with like 2 or 3 of their friends. And these are kids like 7, 8, 9 years old, really young, so the more kids that I see walking home from school during that hour, the safer I assume that the place is, and yeah, it was very clean, very nice, and I assume that Boise is in the Mormon Belt because they had the Latter-day Saints had a really nice temple that I drove by a couple times. But as soon as one good thing comes to mind, or several good things come to mind, other bad things come to mind, I saw a flyer, and I don't remember what it was for some event, and the flyer said, how white people can help achieve racial justice. And the first few minutes I was there, because I got off the plane, I went down to where you pick up your rental car. I had a reservation. Picked up my rental car, started driving around. Within the first 15 minutes, I saw like 2 Bernie Sanders sign stickers and a coexist style sticker. Yeah, I mean, these people are probably transplanted from Portland or Seattle or someplace like that, a more vibrant place like that. And they have no idea why they moved from the place that they did, but they decided that they're going to take their values with them and decided to ruin another place. An entirely new place, previously untouched by their filth. So, yeah, I mean, I've long said that whites have lost their way, and that they've lost their way because they're completely morally apathetic. But the fact that nobody seems to be putting up a fight against these idiots moving into their territory, it affirms a lot of what I've said. And it's nice to see that out there in the real world and not just in my immediate area. I suppose that some people are too nice and some people are too truly tolerant. This is the problem with wolves who don't realize that they don't have to play by the rabbit's rule. And that's what you see out there. You see people who are wolves who want to impress their rabbit friends. So they say, look, I'm voting for a black guy. Look, my black guy's better than your black guy. Look how not racist I am. It's sickening. If you've read the Anonymous Conservative, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I had a story that I was going to read for you. Here it is. This is from CNN.com. And this is on the front page of Drudge Report, which is the only reason why I know this exists. Let's see. What do normal people care about? Normal people that read CNN. Dr. Sanjay Gupta answers your questions on processed meat. If meat causes cancer, what can we eat? Autism. Could high U.S. rate be due to overdiagnosis? How long have I been hearing about autism? How long have I been hearing about cancer? It's like these people fucking think they're gonna live forever. These people think that they will live forever. It's, you know, if cancer doesn't kill you, something else will. Cancer is your body's way of saying you're living too long. Go away. We weren't meant to live as long as we're living. Just not the case. Anyway, let me read the headline first. Chipotle closes dozens of stores in Washington and Oregon in E. coli scare. Now, keep in mind that Chipotle is very well known for their gay rights activism. Okay, CNN. Chipotle has temporarily closed dozens of its restaurants in Washington and Oregon out of an abundance of caution after an E. coli scare. No one has died in the reported cases of infection, the Washington State Department of Health said. 7 of the Washington patients and 1 Oregon patient were hospitalized. The source of contamination is yet to be exactly determined, the department said, but 19 cases in Washington and 3 cases in Oregon have been linked to a handful of locations of the Mexican-themed restaurant chain. Although cases are being investigated in connection with 6 locations in the Seattle and Portland areas, Chipotle has temporarily closed 43 stores. We immediately closed all of our restaurants in the area out of an abundance of caution, even though the vast majority of these restaurants have no reported problems, said Chipotle spokesman Chris Arnold in a statement. Chipotle is working with health departments to help determine the cause of the cases. Now, we are about to get into what causes E. coli. Now, just keep in mind what I said, this demonstrable fact about Chipotle. And go on Tumblr, type in, go to the tags and look at the tag bottom problems and look at how many of these people are complaining about Chipotle so they can't. I had Chipotle, I can't. Okay, CDC on E. coli. Infections with E. coli can cause severe stomach cramps, vomiting, and diarrhea, which is often bloody. Fever is usually low, if at all present, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Infections can range from mild to life-threatening. Now, here's the key part. E. coli bacteria are commonly found in human and animal intestines and are a key component of healthy digestion. Most strains are harmless, but some are not, according to the CDC. Infections start when you get tiny, usually invisible amounts of human or animal feces in your mouth. Now, human feces. That's key there. Now you might say, well, it's animal, they have animal, this is animal. Well, keep in mind their political activities and their clientele. And that's all I'm going to say about it. You think this shit has no real-world implications? It does. Connect the dots, everyone. The dots are there. Okay, and this I'm about to read came from 8chan, and I took a screenshot of it on my phone while I was gone. So here we go. I recently spent some time with close friends after a long hiatus and was surprised by their recent political choices. You gotta be shitting me. Does that dog realize that I have a show going on? Whatever. 4 of my closest friends are voting for Bernie Sanders in the primaries, and they know very little other than the socialist policies he spews. Even my conservative friend is jumping on the bandwagon. They were also dumbfounded when I showed support for Trump. They even went as far as calling him a moron and saying he has no idea what the presidential position calls for, despite providing no evidence other than saying he's been bankrupt so many times before. When doing research on Sanders, I found it very difficult to dig up information on his past career on multiple search engines. Wonder why that is. I need help finding good articles as well as Bernie's previous legislative actions. Apparently saying someone's policies are unsustainable isn't enough anymore. We need to create a compilation of info on all the candidates. Well, Bernie Sanders is very smart. And by promising all of this shit, he is getting every Adderall-addled, pot-poisoned idiot to go vote for him if they can remember to do so. And somebody, the first reply that I got here, it says, and yet it was only Chapter 11 bankruptcy, referring to Trump's bankruptcies, and yet Trump is still a multi-billionaire. Yeah, you're dealing with people that don't understand the difference between Chapter 11 and Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They just think, bankruptcy, that means they got no more money. I make very good decisions, like getting a degree in queer studies. Why can't I make more than $17,000 a year doing that? Bernie Sanders needs to give me free stuff. My HIV cocktails are too expensive. This must be Wall Street's fault. Fucking protecting clean drinking water. Yeah, all those times I've spoken out against clean drinking water. Why don't you tell that to the Mexicans around here who piss in the canals? Why don't you tell that to the taco trucks that think a proper disposal site for their grease, for their cooking oil, is the street? But reality is not in people's perceptions, so. And that's the problem. That's the problem in a culture where the common person, everyone gets a say in what goes on. You are enslaved to the perceptions of others. And what more can I say? What more can I say about that 8chan user? This 8chan user. All I can say is be very careful in choosing your friends, so that you don't have to put up with this bullshit. And Halloween was a couple days ago, I just realized. I'm going to have a bookmark here. Halloween costumes. Colleges designate sensitivity consultants. It's the world you live in. And this world that you live in will not change until the culture is no longer funneled through these schools, or filtered rather. And you can mitigate the effects of academia on the minds of the young if you actually raise your kids. If you actually raise your kids correctly so that they live how you would prefer them to live, and they would have a reason to do so. They would factor their upbringing, the honor of their parents into their decision making, and that's just not the case. The middle class, they have a couple schools down the road that they pay property taxes for, and they're like, yeah, schools are great. They raise my children for me. And that's how you get a culture that we have. And speaking of which, we have a relevant email here. And that's where we will begin questions. I go to a small school which is filled to the brim with libtards, and most of my teachers are libtards. Even one of my teachers is a communist. What do I do to keep myself from being influenced by them? Feel free to answer this in an email or in your great show. Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the question. To keep yourself from being influenced by these people, you have to understand why they believe what they believe. They have their doubts. Everyone has their doubts about what they believe. The difference between us and them is that they're that doubt they're incentivized to repress it to where, to a point where they aren't even thinking about it anymore. They become true believers because what they believe is the source of their income. They vote Democrat. They believe all of this nonsense because all of this nonsense is the source of their livelihood. It's why they have a roof over their head. It's what puts food on their table. So with that in mind, I don't think you need help in resisting their influence. You just need to resist arranging your life and making decisions that will put you in a similar place. And that place is government employment. Living this very, very isolated from the real world life that those in academia live. Avoid that path. Do not take the same path, and you won't become what they have become. Look at it from their perspective. Look at who their friends and coworkers are. Would they have those friends and coworkers if they were to suddenly go full shitlord? If they were to turn heel, as it were? And I understand, I sympathize to some extent, but the foundation of all of their beliefs, all of their friendships, the foundation is human weakness. That which leaves us vulnerable. That which leads us to not being able to defend ourselves against whatever enemies might pop up. Whatever enemies might decide to reveal themselves. As the military digitizes the battlefield and concerns itself with diversity initiatives, I'm convinced that most people who join the military now are just people looking for an easy government job. And I think there's a lot of people out there who have served. There are people who have seen that and can confirm that parts of the military, they probably look no different than the DMV at this point. And this is what your middle class is producing. They're sending their kids off to academia. If these parents already don't believe it themselves, they're creating people who think this is all a great idea. And at this point, there's a part of me that's welcoming the barbarian invasion. At least once everything is turned to rubble, something can be built again. Somebody somewhere down the line can enjoy some sort of dignity. And what did I say about people having their social circles oriented around this idea, and that if you betray this idea, these ideas, these dominant notions, that they will end up betraying you? I have an email that pertains to this exact subject. Okay. Hello, Common Phil. Thank you for answering my other question about reading the Bible for the first time. I can't find the video where you answer it, but whatever. No, it's fine. I probably don't remember either. I live in the most cucked, multicultural, feminist utopia in the world, the city Toronto. It's getting pretty bad up here. Literally everyone I know is a hardcore liberal. My patients would take me to the Pride Parade every year. Shun any idea that differs from the narrative. I have been called a white supremacist for not wanting refugees in my country. In the recent election, I had to lie about voting conservative because even suggesting that is met with great disapproval. My friends call Stephen Harper a fascist. Everyone, even wannabe gangsters that wear their pants around their ass, will defend gay people as if they were Mother Teresa. There were quotes from Lacey Green posted on the walls of my high school. Oh, Yeah, I read Patience. Your parents took you to gay pride parade? Jesus fuck. How can you forgive people? You can't, because people are the enemy of God. Should you forgive God's enemies? No. No. I've even seen Big Red, the cackling cunt in that University of Toronto MRA video, driving a cop car, which scared the shit out of me. I could go on for hours about all the degeneracy, and it would feel good to vent, but on to my question. I was born in England, making me a European citizen. I don't know how fucked and deranged it's gotten over there, but it can't be as awful as it's going to be now that a Marxist pothead is in charge. Canadians are good people who are worthy of preservation, but I feel like I'm trying to stop a shit tsunami with sandbags. Should I jump ship and see what I can do in Europe, or am I a coward for abandoning my people there in the darkest hour? In their darkest hour. Sorry for my life story, but I need to put you in my shoes for a second. Thanks for the podcast. It's given me a lot to think about while blasting Scrubs and Counter-Strike. I think that England might be worse. Just as a general principle, you should always want to deal with the evil you know versus the evil that you don't. The grass isn't always greener. You have knowledge of how to deal with your own people. You know how to navigate Canadian society. And even though it might be turning into something you find distasteful, it's turning into what any decent person would find distasteful. You're still going to give yourself enough time to adjust, because it's not going to happen all at once. The degrading of your nation isn't going to happen all at once. It's been happening for some time, just as it's been happening anywhere where English is the primary language, where white is the dominant demographic. In situations where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, you should stay put. Moving to another country is difficult. Uprooting your life is difficult. And the difficulties, the challenges that brings up, you're going to be dealing with that on top of all of the other bullshit. All of the other bullshit that any English-speaking country is going through, that any predominantly white nation is going through. You're going to be dealing with cultural decay wherever you go. And I know it's tough to see your fellow countrymen go through it, but you're going to see that even in England. You're going to see that in America. You're going to see that in virtually any other country I could possibly name that you would actually want to live in. My advice, don't give yourself an entirely new set of challenges on top of the ones that you already face at home. Okay, next. Interesting Metal Gear military information. U.S. military says Metal Gear sock puppets are real. We believe Metal Gear involves an army of fake cyber personalities immersed in social networking websites for the purpose of manipulating the mass population via influence, the group explained in a press release circulated Wednesday evening. It is sophisticated enough to develop a profile for each puppet to add a level of realism to each. In short, there would be no feasible way to distinguish between 100 people commenting on a subject and 100 of these puppets doing the same. Unsurprisingly, CENTCOM spokesperson Commander Bill Speaks offered a more sterile description of Metal Gear, telling The Guardian. The technology supports classified blogging activities on foreign language websites to enable the military to counter violent extremist and enemy propaganda outside the U.S. That was 2011. The military creating sock puppets account on social media at the cost of millions in a contract just to sway public opinion, supposedly only for foreigners. Now the follow-up article. Quote, but what about propaganda on Twitter aimed at U.S. domestic population? The 2013 NDAA legalized the use of some propaganda domestically, specifically propaganda created by the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors, or BBG, the producers of Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. These changes to the law did not, contrary to much reporting at the time, authorize the U.S. military to engage in domestic propaganda or to target U.S. citizens. Just one problem, notes Cade Crockford of the ACLU's Privacy SOS project. The military operates on the reasonable belief test. Is this person or group American or not? But online, how do you tell who is and is not an American? Twitter bios can lie. And what about people who use VPNs or TOR to mask their IP addresses? To say nothing of the 6 million US citizens who live abroad. The final piece comes from this video by the Pew Research Center, which outright states in its observation, more than ever before, presidential candidates are using social media to get their messages directly to voters and to motivate supporters. It's hard to censor or manipulate a public voice of a crowd. Much easier when you can simply delete accounts and create 100 new ones on the fly. All of them, if not most, being digital puppets. The reason why the left seems to be so popular is because half of its bloat, as I see it, is utter facade. And when you keep telling people that a thing is popular and smart, eventually they will not only believe it, but adamantly shout it as truth. Don't listen to social media, CF, certainly not when it's socio-political in nature, because you don't know who is real or who is a fake. Final note. It would seem Twitter has been outed as censoring tweets and users by region. The social media company also says, we have begun to test a product feature to help us identify suspected abusive tweets and limit their reach. This feature takes into account a wide range of signals and context that frequently correlates with abuse, including the age of the account itself, and the similarity of a tweet to other content that our safety team has in the past independently determined to be abusive. I'm sure the overall excuse is to make sure ISIS stops account hopping and is finally banned permanently, yet we know how this old saw goes. What used to slay the evil remains in the hands of man, who is evil by nature, apart from God, unless reconciled with him through the sincere repentance, worship, and following of Christ Jesus. Well, like you said, don't listen to anything you see on social media. Well, there's knowing and then there's understanding, there's internalizing. I don't internalize any of it. And by internalizing it, I mean I don't accept the ideology that is being pushed and integrate it into my daily life. I'm not that stupid. But like you said, the masses will look at it and say, well, if this is how it's going, I better go along with it or else I'm going to get left behind. I don't want to be a social outcast because, having friendships where the friendship would end if you had the wrong opinions about the issues of the day. That's a really strong friendship because your friends just want what's best for you. And what's best for you is whatever some sorority girl who works as a BuzzFeed editor says is important. Here are 10 Halloween costumes that will allow you to check your white privilege. And look, if you disagree with this, we're not going to be friends anymore. And my friendship should mean a lot to you because I'm a great person. I just don't understand why the powers that be deem people with alternative opinions as a threat. As such a threat that there is nothing that is more important than a couple of ideological fringe groups doing what they do. And what do? We start podcasts and blogs, and apparently that's a matter of national security. Next email. Excuse me. ACF, not so much a question as an update. I'll try to keep it quick. I wrote to you about a month or two ago about coming to college and being socially isolated and alone most of the time. I followed your advice and tried to limit my media consumption and hang out more with my roommate. I also started going to anime club, which got me a little more used to conversing with strangers. Eventually, I met a girl who works on campus, and we really connected. I think we were both a little afraid our feelings weren't mutual, but after hanging out a few times, it became clear. We have rapidly become very close to each other, and it's a little scary for both of us, but I don't foresee the relationship going awry anytime soon. It's hard to explain, but we're suited for each other. I remember you saying something about how the first time you have a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, you see how they compliment you, and I get that now. She promises to be loyal, and she tells me she loves me. She makes food for me. You won't approve of this probably, but I lost my virginity to her. I don't regret it, though. I would have regretted losing it to a one-night stand or a hooker. Yeah, probably. But it was only after she told me she loved me, and I know we both consider this a serious relationship. I'm so grateful for her, and although I'm just barely an adult, I hope to become a decent man for her. So thanks for the advice. I think I needed to hear from someone that learning social skills is important and not just shit for normies. Well, thank you for the email. Thank you for the update. And I will give you another parting piece of advice here. There will be times that your patience will be tested. This is a guarantee. They will be tested by this girl in ways that you will not see coming. But your duty as a man is to control the circumstances and not let the circumstances control you. Letting your emotions sway along with the circumstances, allowing yourself to be unstable, that is the duty of the woman. Someone has to be the rock, and that rock has to be you. You won't know the time, you won't know the place, you won't know the situation or context, but that time will come where you will need to be the rock. You will need to be the immovable object. With all that being said, I would like to leave you with this recording that I made right before I was sitting down to record this episode. It started to rain outside, so I decided to record some original rain sounds. So enjoy it for the last few minutes, and I will talk to you next week. And take care of yourselves. Have a good one.